Hey everyone, welcome back to Sacred Cards. Today I'm very excited to share with you an update to my Dinomorphia deck profile for the post-Valient Smashers format. I really wanted to share an updated list with you because I've been doing a ton of work trying to perfect this deck and boatloads of testing against the meta and all different types of matchups. This deck has been a lot of fun to play and I've gotten the ratios down to be rather consistent and balanced. Also, please be sure to check out the other deck profiles and content on my channel. I really appreciate all the support. The channel has been growing far beyond what I'd ever imagined, so thank you very much. And subscribe to stay tuned for more profiles, updates, and content. So with all that said, I'll go through my deck list and try and explain the cards as best I can. Let's get into the deck profile. Starting off the monsters is 3 copies of Dinomorphia Therizia. If this card is normal or special summon, you can set any Dinomorphia trap from your deck. Then if your life points are 2,000 or less, it gains 500 attack. It also floats if it's destroyed. You can banish a trap from your graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia from the graveyard. Next, I'm on 3 copies of Dinomorphia Diplos. I've seen people run 2, but I think 3 is absolutely essential, especially the way this deck can burn through its resources, as I like sending these off a copy of Frenzy. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send any Dinomorphia card from your deck to the graveyard. Then if your life points are 2,000 or less, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. And if this card is destroyed, you can banish any trap from your graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia from the graveyard. So Diplos and Therizia can kind of help special summon each other back. One of my favorite cards in the deck is 3 copies of Wannabe. I absolutely love this card. This is a great tech card for the deck because during your end phase, or during the end phase rather, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard to excavate cards from the top of your deck up to the number of your opponent's unused spell trap zones. Then set 1 excavated trap to your field and place the rest on the bottom of the deck. It always ensures you have the cards you need. It's like Prosperity for this deck, but better in my opinion. And the last monster I play is 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Just a great generic hand trap, and since I'm only playing 1, I think it's the best choice. So 3 copies of Ash. Well, that rounds out a very small monster count. Now on to the spells, starting off with 3 copies of Potted Duality. Now, I'm not playing Prosperity in this list. Prosperity is a good option, but your extra deck is so crucial and essential, so I chose to play Pot of Duality. It's great to play a deck that utilizes this card because it lets you excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and add one to your hand, helping you dig for the cards you need. You can't special summon during the turn you activate this, but it does let you set up with your normal summon to let you play during your opponent's turn with all your traps. So it does not really hinder the deck at all. And last of the spell cards is 1 copy of Called by the Grave. I like Called by the Grave because it's really good for making sure your copies of Frenzy and Domain don't get ashed, as that is one of your main play starters. Just a great card to have access to. Now that is it for the spells. Now on to the traps. Play a lot of traps in this deck, starting off with 3 copies of the star of the show, Dynomorphia Frenzy. This is my favorite trap in the deck because during your opponent's main phase, pay half your life points, fusion summon a Dinomorphia monster using 1 monster from your deck and 1 monster from your extra deck as fusion material. This card also has the effect that when your opponent activates a card or effect while your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card from your graveyard and you take no effect damage from your opponent this turn. The other fusion trap is 3 copies of Dinomorphia Domain. Domain is equally as important in this deck, so I like playing 3 copies. During the main phase, pay half your life points to fusion summon a Dinomorphia monster using material from your hand, deck, or field. It also has the effect of Frenzy. When your opponent activates a card or effect while your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card. You take no effect damage from your opponent this turn. Now for the counter traps, I play 3 copies of Dinomorphia Intact. When a monster effect is activated while you control a Dinomorphia card, pay half your life points, negate that effect, and destroy that monster. Also, whenever you take battle damage this turn, it becomes half of whatever your life points are at the time. Plus, during damage calculation, if you would take battle damage, you can banish this card and you take no damage from that battle. These counter traps are really good for sending off your copies of, to send with your copies of Diplos in the graveyard just to protect your life points. Next is 1 copy of Dynamorio Sonic. I've been back and forth on 1 to 2 copies, but similar to Intact, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card while you control a Dynamorio monster, pay half your life points, negate the activation, destroy that card, then destroy a monster you control, which generally isn't a big deal because your monsters can float. Also, during damage calculation, while your life points are 2,000 or less, if you would take battle damage, you can banish this card and you take no damage from that battle. Next, more normal traps, 2 copies of Dinomorphia Alert. This is a great card for the grind game. Alert can allow you to pay half your life points, special summon up to 2 Dinomorphia cards in the graveyard whose total levels equal 8 or less. Like the other normal traps, when your opponent activates a card or effect while your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card to prevent effect damage for that turn. For the other traps, I play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. This is an honorary Dynomorphia card for this deck because it allows you to play, or once again, you can pay half your life points to negate a summon or the activation of a spell or trap card and destroy it. Good for stopping cards like Harpy's Feather Duster. Another one I like to play is 3 copies of Solemn Strike. Now this one is slightly debatable and it's one of those cards I'm back and forth on. It's so good for back row decks to negate monster effects. The only downside is you really want to use this card first before your other traps because it requires you to pay 1,500 life points instead of just cutting it in half. It's a great card but isn't the best to draw in the late game. I've considered other cards like Destructive Daruma Cannon, Gravedigger's Trap Hole, maybe another hand trap, but for now it's fine. This is one that's all up to interpretation and whatever you want to play, but I really have been enjoying playing Solemn Strike. It's nice to see these off your copy of Duality or Wannabe. Just make sure you get it off early in the game. Now, another one of my favorites is 3 copies of Ferret Flames. Not 1, not 2, 3 copies. This deck makes great use of this card because if the combined attack of all monsters your opponent controls is higher than your life points, make your opponent shuffle their monsters back into the deck so that the combined attack is less than or equal to your life points. Now you can get down to 200 life points, 154 life points, so it can clear your opponent's entire board, doesn't target. It's also not once per turn, and any card that makes your opponent do anything is inherently good in my opinion. So 3 copies of Ferret Flames. And last card of the main deck is 3 copies of Soul of the Supreme King. This is another great tech for the deck because you can pay half your life points to special summon Supreme King Zedar from your extra deck. Its effects are negated and it is returned to the extra deck at the end of the next turn, allowing you to use it again. It also has the effect that when your opponent activates a spell card or effect, you can banish this card and Supreme King Zedar to special summon up to 1 Pendulum Dragon, 1 Xyz Dragon, 1 Synchro Dragon, and 1 Fusion Dragon monsters from your hand, deck, or extra deck, or graveyard. Now, a lot of times after I activate this card, I'm almost hoping my opponent activates a spell card, because this gives you several new monsters on the board and is one of my favorite engines to play with this deck. I'll show you the cards it gives access to in the extra deck. And Well, that's it for the main deck. Now, speaking of the extra deck. Oh, excuse me. Need a sip of coffee here. Oh, that's better. All right, starting things off, I play 3 copies of Dinomorphia Rex Term. Again, another one of my favorite cards. While this card is on the field, your opponent cannot activate monster effects of monsters with attack greater than or equal to your life points. Plus, quick effect, pay half your life points. The attack of all monsters your opponent controls become equal to your life points. I love it when people don't read this card and decide to just attack one of my monsters and then quick effect cut their attack points down to 250 or 4, whatever life points you have. And if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a level 6 or lower Dinomorphia from the graveyard. Next up is 3 copies of Dinomorphia Kentragina. This is a card I'll usually make first because, well, this 4,000 attack monster loses attack equal to your life points, but it has the amazing ability to quick effect, banish a Dinomorphia normal trap, and that card's effect becomes this card's effect. So technically, you can use your copy of Frenzy or Domain to fusion summon this card, then copy Frenzy or Domain's effect again to get a copy of Rex Term as well. Plus, if this card is destroyed, you can special summon a level 4 or lower from your graveyard. Now, last of the engine cards is 2 copies of Dinomorphia Stealth Bergia. I was playing 3, but I did cut it down for 1 card, and I'll show you which coming up. I love the artwork on this card, and it has the effect that when your life points are 2,000 or less, you don't have to pay life points to activate trap cards or your monsters effects. It also has a quick effect. When your opponent activates a monster effect, you can inflict damage equal to that monster's original attack. It also has the effect that when it's destroyed, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia from the graveyard. This card doesn't come up all too often, but it would allow you to use copies of Solemn Strike without having to pay their cost if it is on the field, so that's really nice. Now, last of the fusion monsters is 2 copies of Supreme King Zedar and 1 copy of Odd Eyes Archray Dragon. You make Zedar with your copies of Soul of the Supreme King, so its effects will be negated, but it provides a huge 4,000 attack and defense, and will return to the extra deck after it is the turn after it is summoned. Although if it does get destroyed, you can place it in the Pendulum Zone. Then Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz monsters your opponent controls can't activate their effects. Plus, if your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, you can destroy that card. I was playing 1 copy, but 2 has come up far too often, especially when you draw into more copies of Soul of the Supreme King. Odd Eyes Archray Dragon is the brand new cover card from Age of Overlord. This card's name is always treated as Supreme King Zedar. This face down card in the extra deck must either be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing 1 level 12 Dark Supreme King Zedar. So you basically tribute off one of these and you get this guy. Giving you a permanent 4,000 attack and defense body on the field. So absolutely love this package. And the last 4 cards are my targets for Soul of the Supreme King. 1 copy of Starving Venom Predapower Fusion Dragon. 1 copy of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. 1 copy of Odd Eyes Rebellion Xyz Dragon. And 1 copy of Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord. Now, Predapower Fusion Dragon is a card I think I'd rather swap out for maybe a copy of Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Its effect doesn't come up in this deck, but it's a free 3,600 body on the field. A good card for getting over big bodies like Chaos Angel on your opponent's side of the field. Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon has the ability that when another monster's effect is activated, quick effect, negate the activation, destroy that card. And if you do, this card gains attack equal to the destroyed monster's original attack till the end of the turn. Plus, if this card battles a level 5 or higher monster during damage calculation, this card gains attack equal to the current attack of the monster it's battling. So it can get over pretty much everything. These 2 Xyz monsters are part of the reason I love this engine so much. because Odd Eye's Rebellion Xyz Dragon isn't much other than a 3000 attack body on its own when it's summoned out this way and has no materials. Although if it does get destroyed, you can place it in your Pendulum Zone, which gives the effect that you can special summon it and attach a dark monster from your graveyard as material. Then you can detach a material, target up to 2 monsters your opponent controls with 3000 or less attack, destroy them. But with Overlord, you can... With Overlord, you can make this card by stacking on top of a Rebellion Xyz monster, since it was made by using a rank 7 as material, and now has the ability to make up to 3 attacks during each battle phase. Not just on monsters either. This guy can attack your opponent's life points 3 times each during the battle phase. All 4 of these cards are very free and give the deck a lot more value and utility, which is why I enjoy playing the Supreme King package in this deck so much. Well, that is it for the deck profile. I really hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything you like or don't like, feel free to leave me a comment telling me what you think. Be sure to like the video if you did and subscribe for more content. Thank you for your support and enjoy the Sacred Cards. See you all in the next one.